As the holiday season kicks into high gear, it's easy to feel overwhelmed by the mix of travel, family gatherings, and seasonal stress. It's a crazy time of year. If you're navigating through sobriety or supporting someone who is, this video is for you. We're diving into practical strategies to maintain your sobriety during the holidays because, yes, it is possible to enjoy this time of year while staying on track.
Hi, my name is Steven, and today I wanted to talk to you about maintaining sobriety during the holiday season, but in such a way where you're not feeling like you're merely surviving the holidays, but you're able to manage them in healthy ways. And to do this, you'll need insight, you'll need awareness, you'll need to have a plan, a strategy to cope, and knowing what to do if you feel that things are beginning to get out of control. So the first step is this idea of insight and awareness. And insight and awareness is critical to maintaining our sobriety because subtle changes in our routine can feel really big. And if we think about it, the holidays, whether we're aware of it or not, can feel stressful. The travel, the shopping, extended family, all of those things can increase stress. And stress is one of the factors that increases our need to consume more food and even drinking. Research also indicates that other factors such as anxiety or isolation, depression, and negative emotion are other factors that, if we're not aware, we can seek to manage in unhealthy ways of coping. So asking a substance to change our mood may serve us in the short term, but in the long term, it can do us a disservice. Another helpful acronym that I'd like for you to be aware of that you can use in the holidays or outside of the holidays, it's an acronym, it's HALT, H-A-L-T, and it stands for hungry, angry, lonely, or tired. And when we're in any one of those or a combination of them, we can be susceptible to unhealthy ways of coping. So just to summarize here, if our routine is going to be stretched during the holiday season, it means that people and places and can be a bit of a challenge. So let's look ahead and have a plan. Okay, next I'd like to talk to you about having a plan. But before we get into planning, I want to talk to you about something that's critical in order for the planning to really be effective. And it's prevention. Prevention is a counterintuitive strategy that really seeks to build capacity for us to be able to manage life. And it's this idea that if you could imagine with me a line on the ground that represents our sobriety, we want to build our camp or live life as far away from that line as possible, so that if the wind blows or life happens, it's not going to push us over that line. So in order to do that, I want you to think about having a lifestyle that is of optimal health and not one that is of high risk. We really want a wide margin for life. Optimal health consists of many different things, but think of, are we neglecting our physical health? What is our environment like at home? It's amazing. Something as simple as not having clean laundry, not having a pair of clean socks, or walking into the kitchen and having a sink full of dirty dishes could result in anxiety and emotional exhaustion that's a result of procrastination, and that can translate to a default way of coping. It is, think about, a good day starts the night before, maybe being in bed by 10 o'clock or whatever that looks like. It's maintaining your physical health and not neglecting it. It's about having open and honest communication, maintaining eye contact, not having any secrets. Socially, we're maintaining commitments. Maybe for you, that's going to prayer, maybe going to church, and all of those things that are important for a well-rounded lifestyle. Okay, so now that we've talked about the importance of prevention, I'd like to go into a few plans that I think would address scenarios that would be commonplace during the holiday season. Let's take the idea of a dinner party. You're invited to a dinner party and the host or the hostess asks you if you would like a drink. Or maybe someone follows up with that and asks you why you're not drinking. While I think it's important that not everybody needs to know our information, it could be very helpful to have an answer, a response planned. Some examples could be that you're the designated driver, or maybe you have a workout planned early the next day, or maybe you're taking a medication that's not conducive to alcohol consumption. But also remember the support that can come from taking a +1, where they can really understand where you're coming from and your needs and be there for you. Next, I would like to talk about a simple framework called harmonize, detach, or engage. And it's this idea that we don't have to, in terms of like interpersonal relationships, we don't have to accept every invitation to argue, and we don't have to invest in every relationship. Harmonize is this idea that I'm somewhere and someone says something that I disagree with. Maybe there's a misalignment in principles or values, but I stop myself. Is it worth the investment? Will this create a stress that could threaten my sobriety? It's this idea that we can harmonize that moment in order to have an interaction, in order to just have a good time with friends or families or coworkers. Now, detach is a little bit different. Detach is this idea that we either don't have to go if it's a toxic environment, or we only go for 30 minutes if you think it's going to be a high-risk situation. And then the last one is engagement. Engagement is where this relationship is worth the investment. This is a relationship where we need to validate each other. We need to learn to appreciate each other. And again, this one is worth the investment. But remember that this is a boundary, and this isn't for the other person or group of people. This is for you in your sobriety. The last plan that I'd like to talk to you about is really having a care team or a support plan in place. And it's this idea that anytime that we notice cravings or urges, the last thing that we want to do is to keep it a secret. If you, in your mind's eye, could just picture, anytime that you feel that craving or urge, it's this idea of bringing other people into the picture. And this is really critical for your sobriety. If we don't, this is where secrets and impaired thinking start. This is where the self-talk begins to get a little louder, and it can get us from point A to point B. And so we want to reach out. There's something called a fire drill, and it's where we are actively participating in relationships before the holiday season starts. If you remember, maybe in school or in a place of business where a fire drill would happen, you would hear the alarm bells, you would stand up, you would walk down the 3 flights of stairs or the path of egress, you would walk out into the parking lot, and you would sit there in the sun until it was over, like you've participated in the drill. And it's the same idea here that's so paramount for your sobriety. I want you to move away from not just thinking through like who you would call maybe Bob or Susan, but actively being in relationship with them, having a weekly phone call with them, taking them to coffee, so that in the midst of the holiday season, if you really need them, they're there. Most people I work with, you'd be amazed at what can come up for them in a moment when they need to call someone. And it's a simple little message like, well, Bob, he'd be so disappointed in me if he knew that I was still struggling. Or Susan, I don't want to bother her. All of her kids are in town. However, that can be a totally different picture if we're in relationship with them before the holiday season starts. And there's what we really want to stay away from is self-reliance. If we are relying on self-reliance to help us to manage the cravings and the urges, we're in a not a healthy place. Self-reliance, if it's allowed to remain unchecked, willpower can increase in a futile attempt to remain clean. So again, I encourage you to come up with a list of 3 to 5 people and begin the process of reaching out. Next, I'd like to talk to you about having a strategy to cope. These are really great grounding exercises that you can use in a pinch, even after you've done your prevention and your planning and your optimal health. Um, it's this idea that in moments of acute stress or worry or being around temptation, this part of our brain, our prefrontal cortex, can go offline. And this is a really important part of what we need because it helps us with our best thinking. And again, we need our best thinking when it comes to maintaining our sobriety. So a grounding exercise is a simple way to get this back online. It can anchor us and it can give us distance from whatever the problem is. And I really like the one I'm about to share, which is called 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, because two things. One, it's couched in a breathing exercise, and two, it's something that you can do in a room full of people and nobody would know. So it's a great tool to have. So to really make this work, it's helpful to engage the parasympathetic side of our nervous system, and that's why breathing is so important. If you would, place your hand over your sternum and just elongate your spine. If you're standing in a room, this is already done for you. If you're sitting in a couch, you might want to um, make sure that your spine is upright. Now, for the purposes of this instruction, I'd like for you to put your hand over your sternum, but in a real life scenario, you don't have to do this. I just want you to know the difference between a normal breath and a deep belly breath. So if you would inhale, just notice if you can feel your belly starting to extend out. That's a good indication that you're taking a good full breath. So for 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 to work, I'd like for you to take 3 to 5 slow full breaths. On the fourth and fifth one, if you're aware and you're really in a stressful situation, I would encourage you to exaggerate the exhale, maybe for a count of 2 to 4. Once you've done 3 to 5 deep belly breaths, I want you to engage your 5 senses. And you can do it in any order that you would like. Maybe you begin by noticing 5 things in the room that are blue, 4 things that you could touch, 3 things that you could hear, 2 things that you could taste, and 1 thing that you could smell. And you can change that up any way that you would like. Once you finish, follow up with 3 to 5 more deep, slow belly breaths and see if you notice a difference. If you don't, I'd encourage you to go to a different room and do the same exercise again and change it up. But what we're doing here is we are focusing on reality, literally. Like we are riveting ourselves to the present moment. So I hope you find this helpful. Okay, this is the last part that I would like to share with you, and it's really knowing what to do if you feel that things are beginning to get out of control. Now, I think it's really important to ask the question, what do we do and how do we know when to ask for help? So I'd like to start with 2 very basic definitions of addiction. And the purpose of this is to help us know what are we looking for. The first definition is it's a pathological relationship with either a substance or a behavior that's mood altering. The second definition is a preoccupation or obsessive thinking about the behavior or using that substance. That's also, it involves the compulsive behavior itself that a person will persist in despite negative consequences. Next, I would like to address alcohol specifically. And to do this, I'd like to look to the National Institute of Alcohol Abuse and Alcoholism to give us a standard to refer to. In terms of like heavy drinking or binge drinking, for women, it's 4 more drinks in a day, not to exceed 8 drinks a week. For men, it's 5 or more drinks a day, not to exceed 15 a week. And because of the progressive nature of alcoholism, if you're meeting this criteria, I would encourage you to call a professional who specializes in chemical dependency just to come in for a proper assessment and a clinical interview. I think it's really important to know, to just see how you're doing. This is important for not only treatment planning, but also determine the appropriate level of care that you might need. But there's one key factor that's going to make this work, and that responsibility rests with you. all you have to do is just ask for help. If you do reach out to a professional, just expect them to do a lot of the heavy lifting and to point you in the right direction. I hope this has been helpful, and I hope you have a great holiday season.